I guess I'll talk about what I want this video to be. I have essentially one tip that if somebody asked me, and I've talked about this before on stream, but if somebody asked me, how do you gain followers? And I had to give one piece of advice, this would be the piece of advice. And so I want to do a video talking about it and how I applied it to my own work. But I think that this advice is also general as well. It's not just for getting followers or whatever. This is something you can apply to everything. This is something you can apply to business or personal relationships or anything. But anyway, this one piece of advice you can apply to your life in general, I think, and any, not even creative pursuit, but like I said, just even like business or whatever. And it's iteration. And even if you're just learning a skill, this is something you can apply it. And what I mean by iteration is you do something, but you're critical about it. And I said, I don't remember if it was in another video or if it was just on stream, but if I could go back and do things differently, I would work just as hard, but I would work way smarter as well. And that would, and what I mean by that is iteration. And so how I'm going to demonstrate that is show you some of my earliest Twitter posts and explain why they didn't work. And then I start explaining my first post that did well and how I took that iteration to take the format to the next level. So the first one that I'll show you is actually just the cover of one of the Panty Bear chapters from chapter 5. And it is Lucia. See, because a lot of people, I'll let you guys look at this really cool engine because this is an awesome drawing. I think I just straight up referenced it from like an old shitty car. Anyways, yeah, this is also a weird style I was doing at the time. I don't know. This was like 5 years ago, maybe 4 years ago. And looks like an inline 4. Yeah, probably. So this is one of my earliest posts. And it didn't do very well. But at the time, I wasn't really posting it to do super well. It was just something that I made for the chapter. I mean, when I say didn't do well, I think this probably got like 10 or 20 likes on it. So it didn't do anything, but whatever. I thought it was a cool drawing.
How many followers were you at this time, roughly?
At this time, roughly like 800, 900, maybe. So not a ton. And I mean, I know that's a lot for some people, but compared to where I'm at now, that's not a lot. Actually, it's probably even less than that. It might have been like 500 or something, because I didn't post a lot at all at this time. But when I did, it didn't do very well. And this was, like I said, this wasn't even done with posting on Twitter in mind. This was just done with the intention of putting it on Webtoons and saying, here's the chapter cover. And the next drawing that I'll show is this one. This is when I actually started to... I had the idea, and I was like, well, I want to promote the webcomic more. This was all just to promote the webcomic. I was like, I want to start posting Lucia more so I get people to read the webcomic. I didn't care about growing on Twitter other than I just want people to read the webcomic. So I started drawing Lucia more. And so I do this drawing, and I think this one actually did okay. I think it got like 400 likes. And maybe got me 10 or 20 followers. So I was like, all right, we're cooking a little bit. Because a lot of people think that you need to do fan art to grow, right? And I don't think that's necessarily true, because most of these that I'm going to show are not fan art. I think actually I only have 2 in this whole lineup of 18 that are fan art. But I was like, I want to draw my character because I want people to like my character and I want people to read my webcomic. So I did this. It did, like I said, it did okay. It got a couple hundred likes. I started drawing more stuff, and this one didn't do well. And I'm like, well, okay, that one didn't do nearly as well as this one. So so what I mean when I said earlier iteration, I say this one did worse. What's different between this drawing and this drawing? And I did the hair in a different style. This is sort of a different, and also the colors are a lot brighter. There's multiple characters. There's a lot more going on. The composition's a little bit more interesting. So and also the background here is really bad. So I was like, okay, and there's a lot of noise applied to this as well. So I'm like, this one didn't do very well, so I need to go back into the route of, this. Next thing I did, I think these were just some like practice sketches. But I did this, and I threw it up on Twitter anyways. I drew a bunch of these Lucias just in different outfits to practice my inking digitally. And I threw this up, and this actually, it did fairly well. I think it got like 900 likes, which was probably my most popular post ever at the time. And I was like, wow, why, this did super, super well. I'm like, why did that do better than everything else? And at this point, I got frustrated, and I was like, man, I have no idea what Twitter wants. So the next thing I did some Spirited Away fan art, and it didn't do anything. But then I did this fan art, and this did very well. This was my first big post, quote unquote. This was like, I think it had 10,000 likes, and my previous best before this was like 1,000 likes. Was that Lucia drawing? So I was like, wow, and like I saw how many people looked at it, and a lot of people joined the Patreon, and a lot of people read the webcomic, and I was like, wow, like I really realized Twitter is super, super powerful. What is different about this than everything else that I did? Well, compared to everything else, the inking style is different. I used a different brush, and it's a lot cleaner. A lot of the shapes and the colors are cleaner. And so I started to really dissect. I'm like, okay, so a lot of the, the inking style is different. I'm like, well, this did very well. This is fan art. What if I apply the same stuff to my own character, though? And I did this with Lucia. And Matt, you might have to censor this butt. Throw up a little smiley face or something. But anyway, so I do this drawing, and if I remember correctly, I don't remember exactly how many it got, but this had like several thousand likes. And this is a drawing of Lucia. So I'm like, okay, I'm onto something here. Like maybe with the brush, it's like I'm onto something. And I'm like, so this is starting doing well. So I'm like, okay, I need to really commit to this point to doing Twitter to get people on. My thought process is just eyes on the webcomic. So I do another drawing. I do another Lucia. It's her holding a little Pikachu. She's in a Pikachu outfit. I'm like, this is cute. It did okay. It got like 800 likes, and not very much compared to this one though. So I'm like, what's the difference? So the next one I did, this is cleaner. This one doesn't have the same. Actually, well, they both have the same effect. Nobody liked this one, and also, in fairness, looking at it now, this drawing is fucking horrible.
I'm noticing you're just starting to promote the Patreon too. These last two ones.
Yeah, I'm starting to promote the Patreon because I noticed when I put the title or the Patreon and stuff, people subscribed. But this drawing's bad. Nobody liked it, and I'm like, well, why doesn't anybody like it? Probably because of all this weird shading. And I do another drawing. Not a lot going on. So these last three drawings, they don't do well, but this one did. So I say, what's different about this drawing that these other three don't have? Well, there's multiple poses in this drawing, right? That's a fairly big difference. So I say, well, let's try it again. And I do this one. And with several different poses, all in different outfits. And this one does very well. So I'm like, okay, so maybe people like different poses. So I go, okay, I'll do that again. I do it again. I went so crazy with whatever the fuck this effect is. I don't know why on earth I did that. But so through doing a few of these little poses, I got to 10,000 followers. And I'm like, okay, so I'm starting to roll now. I'm starting to cook a little bit. And you can see the style. I've left out some drawings. This isn't every drawing that I posted, obviously. So you can see the line art is starting to change from these earliest drawings. And I'm trying these different methods and stuff. And I'm just sort of looking at the things that work. And I'm getting rid of the ones that don't. So you can see I'm getting rid of this effect. This one doesn't have it. The effect of the weird dots, the halftones. Got rid of that. Don't need that. I realize my posts do better if I don't have that. So I do this, and then this is the one that changed everything. So I took the idea of these other ones where it was multiple poses, right? And I said, people love multiple poses, but it's hard to draw multiple outfits. Will people still like it if it's just the same outfit? The answer is yes. This is my first big post. I think it had like 1 million impressions, like 30,000 likes, up from my previous high, which was, I still think the fan art with like 10,000. But so this is the one with 30,000. This changed everything. And the Patreon went crazy when this got posted. I was like, oh my God, this is like huge. People will actually look at my stuff. I think I finally figured it out. It all has to be the same outfit. It has to have multiple poses like this, zoomed out in the 16:9 format. So the thinking at the time was you do the 16:9 format because when people were scrolling through Twitter, if anything was taller than 16:9, it would get cropped out and it would appear smaller. That's not true anymore. So a lot of the same stuff that I'm talking about now, it doesn't apply the same way. So you can't use these exact same techniques. But this is more about the methodology of, you look at what works, you look at what doesn't, and how I applied it to this. So I realized all of a sudden, I'm like, okay, so that's a multiple poses thing. And you can see it starts all the way back from this one, where I realized like this one does better. And so when I start doing these single ones and they don't do well, I'm like, well, okay, how do I, what was different about the one that did well? It had multiple poses. And so I say, okay, so these start doing well. I say, how can I make them even better? I'm going to clean up the style a little bit, clean up the line art, not have the effects, have all the characters in the same outfit, and have different, like a wider variety of poses. So then I start doing it again, and I enter this string of posts where everything's like 30,000 likes, and my follower account grows like crazy. And in like a month, I gained like 20 or 30,000 followers, which, I mean, it took me 2 or 3 years to hit 10,000. So, I'm getting to like 40, 50,000. I'm getting up there, and I just kept going like this for several months, probably 6 or 7 months. He's like a rogue AI. It's learning. Yeah, kind of. That's the same methodology, right? And then the next big thing that happened is I kept this process up until I reached 100,000 followers. And then things changed again because I said, I want to celebrate. I got 100,000 followers. This is a big deal. What do I do to celebrate? And I had this idea. There was an old game that would go around on Twitter where it would be like a meter, and it would say like, it'd be a character like this, and it'll say like, I'll take her shirt off or whatever for 200 likes and something like that. It was not a lot of people did it, but I remember it caught on once or twice many years ago. Did I use hashtags? No, hashtags kill your posts. I can explain why later after I get through this more, but they don't do well for your posts at all. They actually negatively affect it. But I did the strip game to celebrate. My thought process, and actually was just that I was going to do polls instead of likes, because it used to be you do likes and retweets, and that's how you decide what you take off. But I was like, I'm celebrating 100,000. I don't want people to have to feel like they have to interact with the post since it's supposed to be a celebration. I don't want to do all that. So I just do this, and I had several people telling me like, no, you shouldn't do that. That's not going to do whatever. This was just pure luck. I just realized like when I posted this, it went crazy. So I went from 100,000 followers when I posted this as a celebration for 100,000 followers. I think by the end of the game, which lasted for 5 days, I was at like 140, 150. I found you on Twitter with the strip game. Yeah, a lot of people did. And because, like I said, it what it did was the polls, since so many more people would vote in them than would like or retweet the post or reply, then it would just sort of mess with the algorithm, and it would boost that post all the way to the top. So everybody started getting recommended these strip game posts. So they would start going crazy viral. And then everybody else started doing them. It sort of became a trend that caught on, which also helped boost. But that's sort of part of this too, is sometimes it's luck, right? So like it was a lot of just like meticulous crafting the format and the process to get to 100,000. And then I had a bit of luck. I stumbled upon a format that really, really worked for me. And I didn't just say, oh, that was nice. I did it again. And I did it again. And then as time went on, I just kept improving the format, trying different stuff, hopping on different trends. So like there for a little bit, there was this stretch where different restaurants were popular. So like Goth IHOP, Wendy's, and Tomboy Outback. They got popular at different times. So I hopped on. That always helps boost your popularity a little bit. You just get on something that's popping. And I just kept writing. I did a strip game like every 2 or 3 months. Of course, now, and like I said, a lot of these tips are outdated because Twitter changes. Now you can't do the strip games because Twitter just crushed them because people are abusing the algorithm, like me. But the point is, even though a lot of these tips that I learned several years ago are not applicable necessarily in the same way, this thought process is, and this is how I want everybody to think. Really, it felt like they were much more frequent than that. No, I only did them at most 2 or 3 months. If that, probably even less. You might think that just because a lot of other people did them, but I tried not to do them too much. And then when they killed polls, I did one last one, and then I've done a couple since then, but they've been just like very short. Like they've not been the full blown strip games. But yeah, like I said, it's about the same. It's about the mentality. I want everybody to think about this. When you have a post and it doesn't go well, don't think, oh, this post didn't do as well as this other one. Think about why. Think about, oh, okay, so like maybe what's different? Because even though these tips aren't applicable, there's still new stuff out there to discover, new stuff to learn. So that's how you have to think about it. Hashtags, yeah. So I'll talk about that a little bit. So basically, what Twitter is there's a main feed when you go to the homepage, right? And that's where all of the posts that are made are just thrown into there. However, there are hashtag feeds. So if you click on a hashtag, you go over to the hashtag feed, and it's every post with that hashtag in it. What happens is if you put a hashtag on your drawing, it takes it and just throws it out of the main feed into the special hashtag feed. Now, a lot less people are looking at those, especially if you do those hashtags that aren't real hashtags. Like a lot of people will be like hashtag bronze butthole or whatever. Like it's not a real hashtag. You're being thrown into a feed that does not even exist. So you're taken out of the general population of Twitter. So if your goal is to reach a lot of people, don't use hashtags, because you're being taken out of where most of the people are. Now, if you're going and you're tweeting like you have a small account with no followers and you're watching a sports game, hashtags are great because you can tweet hashtag Super Bowl, and then you end up in the feed of all the people tweeting about the Super Bowl, right?
Funnily enough, you had that happen to you with the strip game.
Yeah, actually, the NBA finals were going on, and because I was tweeting strip game part whatever, because the word game was in the title, it was being recommended in the NBA finals feed. So I got a lot of NBA fans that were like, what the fuck is this?
What is this shit?
How do you come up with so many poses? A lot of them are from imagination. How are they from imagination? I don't know. I did a lot of figure drawing. And I think if you do a lot of figure drawing, you just sort of naturally at some point gain the ability. But also, like with anything, like drawing from imagination, the only way to get better at it is by doing it. So if you want to draw from imagination, you draw from imagination, right? Like drawing from reference isn't really super helpful to drawing from imagination. It'll help you a little bit, just making you better, giving you more knowledge. But like, if you can already be a good artist, but if you've never drawn from imagination, you won't suddenly be able to do it very well. It takes practice. You just got to do it. So if that's what, and I always tell people, whatever it is that you want to do, you should do it, because that's the fastest way to get better at it. So I hear a lot of people, they say, I want to do animation or I want to make a comic book, but at first I have to get better at this. Don't do that. Never say that. The fastest way to get better at making a comic book is making a comic book. Like, absolutely. That's the best way to do it. Also, you can see like iteration even in this. So like this is a newer drawing. You can see the format's not 16:9 anymore, like widescreen. The format is 10:8 because Twitter doesn't like 16:9 formats anymore because they fixed the crop. So like I said, things change all the time. So even if I made a video with all of the advice that I knew worked right now, like it would be outdated probably in a couple of months, because especially right now with Elon taking over, it's super volatile. Everything changes. I don't know how you end a video like this.
Subscribe.
That's pretty much it. Subscribe.